Mr. Chairman, this is a fairly new topic for everyone. I have a side-by-side that I've prepared that shows the S221, which we passed last year. It became law. We have the S221 as it was originally filed by Senator Ott. We have it as it was amended by both by the Senate and then accepted by the House. And then we have this bill on the third panel, and I have that pulled up on the console for everybody to be able to look at. But briefly, this would make it illegal for a kratom processor retailer to prepare, manufacture, distribute, dispense any kratom product that contains any synthetically derived compound. It would add any alkaloid, salt, isomer, compound, derivative, precursor, homolog, analog, or other preparation that is substantially chemically equivalent or identical to kratom to the list of Schedule I controlled substances. That is a new feature of this bill. That particular section 4453-190 is addressed in this iteration of kratom law. It was not part of the precursor S221, and we have a lot of people that have requested to speak to this one, Mr. Chairman.
Well, let's get started.
Yes, sir.
What I'd like to do is, if everyone can help us, try to keep your comments under 3 minutes if you can. That way we can get to as many of you as possible. We're going to do our best to get to all of you, but we've got a hard stop here that we've got to accommodate for this room, and so it's imperative that we get it done. So if I have to cut you off, I'm sorry. But let's move forward. Okay, call your first witness.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any comments from any member of the Senate before we get started? All right, let's go.
Mr. Chairman, Dr. Paloma Lefelt from Botanicals for Better Health and Wellness.
Thank you. Good morning, members of the Senate Medical Affairs Committee. My name is Dr. Paloma Lefelt. I'm a physician scientist. I've studied botanicals for the past decade. I'm also an adjunct professor at BCIT, and I'm the medical director of Botanicals for Better Health and Wellness. We're a trade organization dedicated to responsible regulation and safe access of botanicals. I'm here to respectfully oppose H4641 as passed by the House and urge the committee to amend the bill to specifically prohibit 7-hydroxymitragynine, or 7-OH, and other synthetic or highly modified alkaloids while preserving access to the natural botanical kratom. The intent of the House-passed bill was to follow the federal recommendation to ban 7-OH while keeping natural kratom regulated under the Kratom Consumer Protection Act in South Carolina. However, the House amendments inadvertently ban all kratom products in the state. The staff and members of the subcommittee have received recommended amended language that corrects this issue, allowing for natural kratom to remain regulated and sold in South Carolina while banning the synthetic 7-OH. From a medical and public health perspective, it is critical to distinguish between the natural botanical kratom and the emerging category of synthetic or highly concentrated drugs that are increasingly associated with harm. Natural kratom, Mitragynous speciosa, is a botanical that has been used by millions of Americans primarily to increase energy and focus and relieve from minor aches and pains. Data from a 2020 Johns Hopkins study of over 2,700 kratom consumers in the United States have found that the majority of folks use it for wellness-related purposes with relatively low risks of severe harm. Clinically, its primary alkaloid mitragynine exhibits a complex pharmacology that differs meaningfully from classical opioids, notably without the risk of respiratory depression. In contrast, the synthetic drug 7-OH represents a fundamentally different risk category. Research suggests that it binds 13 times more affinity than at the mu opioid receptor compared to traditional opioids like morphine. And the issue is that it's being manufactured, marketed, and sold in ways that put the public in harm's way. These products are often mislabeled as kratom, creating confusion for consumers and regulators alike. Recent scientific literature suggests that 7-OH leads to dependence, withdrawal, and respiratory depression, consistent with effects commonly associated with traditional opioids. For these reasons, I respectfully urge the committee to reject H4641 as passed by the House in its current form, adopt the amendment language to correct the issue, amend the bill to explicitly prohibit synthetic, semi-synthetic, or chemically modified alkaloids, including 7-OH products that are not naturally occurring in unadulterated kratom leaf, and preserve access to natural kratom under the Kratom Consumer Protection Act in the state, which includes age gating, restrictions, product testing, and contaminant controls. Finally, I want to acknowledge the deeply personal experiences with addiction that inform this committee's work. It is precisely because of these realities that we must be careful not to remove regulated botanicals that individuals are using to stabilize their lives while allowing more dangerous synthetic products to proliferate unchecked. Thank you all for your time, and I welcome the opportunity to answer any questions.
Questions from the committee?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, Senator Manners.
Sorry, I had to walk out a minute. Is there, you referenced an amendment. Is there an amendment?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, we do have that. Staff has that. We're ready to distribute it at the appropriate time. So we just wait on your instruction there.
We'll go ahead and do it
Okay,
now. Well, she can
Who
speak to it.
prepared the amendment? Who wrote the amendment?
Mr. Chairman, the amendment comes to us with from an organization called SMA, and that escapes me at the moment. Some of our guests can tell us who that
Could you
organization
tell us
is.
who SMN?
The Medical Association.
It's
The-
SMA. What does the S stand for?
I believe it's the State Medical Association.
State Medical Association?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and SCMA also participated in this process as well.
Yes, sir.
I don't know who the State Medical Association is.
Do what? Go ahead. Do we have Mr. Ted Riley here?
Yes, sir.
Could you stand up, please, sir? Could you identify these for us, SMA/SCMA?
I guess you're looking at the South Carolina Medical Association. Botanicals for Better Health and Wellness is the trade organization these two individuals are representing.
Okay.
Help draft this language that's used across the country.
Does that answer your question, Senator?
Not exactly.
Did you want to?
What I'm trying to find out is, it says SMA/SCMA. So are we saying that this is an amendment that's supported by the South Carolina Medical Association?
Young lady
Yes,
in the
sir.
back.
It's Rochelle Taylor, CEO of the SCMA. Yes, sir, we reviewed the amendment yesterday, and we actually added some language.
Could you come up here to talk, please?
Ma'am, you go ahead and stay right there.
Yes, sir.
Ma'am, if you would, sit in the other seat there to the right, and those medical students can stand behind you there, okay?
Yes, sir. We reviewed the language, Senator Cash, and added some information with it and support that amendment. So it should be SCMA supporting with them, and we actually have medical students here to testify today.
Do you know what the SMA is?
I think somebody wrote that meaning the SCMA, but as far as I know, it's just the South
It's the
Carolina
South
Medical
Carolina Medical
Association.
Association.
Mr. Chairman, we will own that as a staff mistake because
problem.
the document came to me. I titled it that, and then after that, I had input from Ms. Taylor on that, so I just created a hybrid entity. So
That's
my apologies if I've contributed to confusion this
No
morning.
problem. We've got it straightened out now.
Mr. Chairman, are they signed up to speak?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, that's fine. We can hear them.
All right. Well,
Order.
any questions now for our first witness? Anything further? Thank you so much for your
Thank you, sir.
testimony. Thank you for doing the work for the botanicals.
Thank
We
you, sir.
appreciate that. Thank you. Y'all can go ahead and have a seat. Were they next on the list?
Well, we can take them. They're going to be called, Mr. Chairman.
Probably
so
good to take them.
My
That's great.
understanding is they were going to present as one.
Okay, that's fine.
So 3 minutes for
Thank you all.
presentation. I'll give you a signal at 1 minute.
Can y'all go ahead and just give us your names for our record?
Chairman and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you all today. My name is student Dr. Leanna Perazzo, and I'm a first-year medical student. I'm speaking alongside my colleagues, student doctors Paige Goswich, Hannah Casper, and Jake Larson as members of the South Carolina Medical Association and as future physicians.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having us.
Go ahead.
We are here to discuss a growing public health and patient concern involving kratom and one of its most potent compounds, 7-hydroxymetrogynine, or 7-OH. We appreciate the work this legislature is doing in advancing regulation on kratom. We believe this effort should focus on the rapidly expanding market of concentrated and enhanced products and ensure there is a clear understanding of how these substances may affect individuals who may not realize the risks. We believe this bill would also benefit from targeted amendments to address high-potency products. As written, it treats kratom as a regulated product while also proposing to place its primary components on the Schedule I list. This is difficult in practice because those parts of kratom are naturally in the plant, so it can be hard to differentiate the different parts. We feel the most important part right now is the large number of concentrated products made from 7-OH that are in the market. These concentrated products are driving a rise in emergency department visits and poison center calls. The biggest worry is that 7-OH, which is normally present in the plant at low levels, is being enhanced to create an unsafe product of high potency far beyond the levels found in the plant naturally. At the same time, kratom products are widely available in powders, capsules, drinks, gummies, and extracts, and often marketed as natural or wellness products for energy, mood, pain relief, and anxiety. This creates a gap between how these products are presented and how they actually act in the body. They're commonly sold in gas stations, vape shops, and convenience stores, often packaged alongside everyday products, making them appear familiar and very low risk. But their pharmacology tells a different story. Kratom contains compounds like 7-OH that act on mu-opioid receptors, the same receptors that morphine, fentanyl, and heroin hit. Many consumers are not aware of this when they purchase these products. The individuals using these products are often not trying to misuse anything. They may be managing anxiety, chronic pain, or daily functioning without consistent access to care. In many cases, they are not choosing risk. They're choosing what they believe is safe. We are not just talking about products on shelves. We're talking about patients who may present to our clinics after trusting labeling that did not reflect the true risk. Patients who did not realize how concentrated these products were and who may experience dependence, withdrawal, or adverse effects as a result. That disconnect creates real harm. In the natural kratom plant, 7-OH, the minor constituent, typically present in the low hundredths of a percent up to around 2% by weight, where its effect is limited. But many products in the market are engineered extracts designed to raise 7-OH levels to where they are never found in nature. Our proposed approach is targeted and evidence-based. First, a 2% cap on 7-OH within the alkaloid fraction. This aligns with natural concentrations, approximately 0.01% to 2%, allowing compliant products to remain available while preventing formulations engineered for extreme potency. This is already in use or under consideration in states such as Arizona, Texas, Colorado, and Mississippi, while others, including Alabama, Arkansas, Connecticut, Kansas, Indiana, and Wisconsin, have fully banned kratom. Am I able to finish? We believe a 2% cap represents a balanced middle ground that helps prevent significant harm. Second, the current bill's focus on fully synthetic alkaloids may leave room for high-potency products to remain on the market. Manufacturers can extract and concentrate 7-OH from plant material and still claim it is not fully synthetic while producing the same high-potency product. We recommend method-neutral language that includes synthetic, semi-synthetic, and concentrated alkaloids regardless of how they are produced. We appreciate the work the South Carolina legislature is doing in this important public health space, and we respectfully advocate for appropriate safeguards to protect vulnerable populations. Many consumers do not fully understand the risks associated with these products, particularly highly concentrated formulations. Until there is greater public awareness and cleaner regulation, safeguards are necessary to help protect the health and safety of South Carolinians. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Have you had an opportunity to look at the amendment that's being proposed? Could I get you to speak to the amendment? Does the amendment do the things that you're asking us to do?
Yes, we were a part of crafting the amendments and believe that the 2% cap helps ensure that the regulation on kratom ensures that natural products can still be available, but that once they hit the higher concentrations where dependence and opioid-like effects are seen, there's regulation on those types of products. It also changes the language for to include all the semi-synthetic and enhanced formulations that are what are really causing a lot of the damage, as opposed to the bill right now that just says fully synthetic and allows for a lot of products to kind of get loopholes through the system because they're not fully synthetic, they're
So
semi-synthetic.
let me ask you this question. Normally, a plant would have 2% or less than 2%?
Yes, 0.01 to about 2.
So why aren't we leaving it there? I mean, why are we enhancing it at all?
Well, it's 0.01 to about 2% is there's variation in
So
the
that's
plant,
the
so it's
average?
the
Okay.
average, yes.
All right. Well, that sounds good. I want to make sure it's also per container. You know, we just had the hemp problem with the the fact that the federal law said 0.4
Yeah.
or 0.3, and now it's going to 0.4, and now we're talking about containers. So I want to make sure that we cover that to make sure it's per container.
Yes.
It can be no more than
Yeah.
0.2, I guess, per container, and that would pretty well cover all of what you say is okay.
Yes.
And again, you heard the earlier testimony is that a lot of people are using this to good advantage. My question was, why aren't we getting it scheduled, and why aren't we having doctors prescribe it if it's a good thing? You want to comment on that?
We also believe that many people are using kratom at very, very low concentrations for benefits when it's below this cap percentage. However, we are in agreement with you that kratom, just like any other opioid-containing product, should be worked with a physician and having a patient-physician relationship to monitor the use of opioids.
I mean, again, it is I've heard, actually, I've got a friend of a friend who really got sick with this and actually got hooked on it, and then it was almost impossible to get off of it. Is that true? The withdrawals are worse than heroin?
It hits the same, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that is kind of what our main concern is that these forms that are coming out that are semi-synthetic or fully synthetic or even enhanced are hitting the same mu opioid receptors that like heroin and morphine and all of those other opioids hit. So you have people that might be going into a gas station, seeing a product that's marketed as natural, not expecting anything of it, and then unknowingly becoming addicted to opioids in that way.
I know my little sister, who is in high school, asked me about kratom products and if it was something that was safe and healthy to take. And I don't think that should ever be a question of a child having exposure to an opioid without any regulation.
So you're perfectly fine with the 21-year cutoff,
Yes.
and then also being behind the counter that's in the current bill. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Any questions, members? Senator Manderson?
So, this may be a question for Gene, but the bill in its current form, does it ban kratom altogether?
No, sir. What's come over from the House?
Yes.
Senator, that depends on who you talk to. That doesn't seek to ban it altogether, but there are some that will tell you that the construction of the bill is such that it creates an internal conflict, and the final result would be that it would ban anything because it takes into account natural occurrences that would be illegal as well.
Okay. So, getting back to the medical issues, it's possible that these higher levels create addiction, correct?
Yes, it's confirmed, yes.
What other type of injuries would result from the products that you don't think should be available? I mean, do people overdose and die on this stuff? I mean, I don't know.
Yes, that's the main issue. It is, as the person who spoke before us said, it is 13 times more potent than morphine and fentanyl, and those are never products that you're buying in a gas station without any regulation. So it's the enhanced formulation of the natural product that is causing these effects. The natural product, when it's under 2%, does not have the same negative opioid-like effects of respiratory depression and addiction and dependence and withdrawal and tolerance that we see with opioids. That's where the disconnect relies, that the natural products don't do that, but the problem is the ones that are on the market right now are enhanced and semi-synthetic formulas that have levels and create opioid effects that are even worse than kratom. We had in 2025, the CDC Poison Center rate for kratom exposure was 10 times higher than in 2015. And recently, even more, the Poison Center rated kratom exposure that it jumped from 15,000 to 3,500 from just 2024 to 2025. So we're seeing issues and increase in numbers of use that are directly related to the increased potency of these products, and that's where the issue lies.
So when we're discussing this and trying to understand from a scientific point of view, is there research into kratom, what you would call peer-reviewed research as to its efficacy, and also about this 2% level that you're presenting as the upper limit? Is there research that supports the 2% level? I mean, where are we in trying to understand from a chemical scientific level? Are we guessing at these numbers, or have you got papers you can point us to?
Yes, there are published papers. We don't have records with us right now, but all of the data that we've collected is from the CDC and the FDA, and there's a lot of research that's been ongoing considering how popular kratom has been becoming, and we have determined the 2% cap from what other states have also implemented based on scientific evidence-based research. Yes.
We would be happy to provide any resources that you would need from what we looked into. At a later date.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming today.
Of course. Thank you for having us.
Any further questions? Senator from Greenville.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Please forgive me if I'm being any redundant. You get double booked around here a lot. I had a meeting, LCI meeting booked at the same time, so forgive my tardiness to the audience and my colleagues up here. I'm just trying to get caught up. So my degree from Clemson was in horticulture, so I'm, believe it or not, so I'm curious. So this is a chemical or product derived from a plant?
Yes.
What plant do they get it from?
It is the...
I mean, like, you get...
Mitragynine speciosa. Yes.
You get certain opioids,
So
poppies and different things. Is there like marijuana, hemp-based originally?
So the 7-OH is one of the most potent compounds of this plant species, but in naturally occurring levels, this percentage within the plant is between 0.01 to 2% of the plant is the potency. But what is going on is people are taking the 7-OH compound from the naturally occurring kratom plant, and they're engineering it and enhancing it to have a much greater potency and make these effects much stronger on the mu opioid receptors to resemble fentanyl and morphine.
That's where the synthetic and alkaloids come in?
Yes.
Okay. And so the actual plant we're talking about is a kratom plant?
Kratom. Yes.
Okay. Well, so you learn something every day. I've never heard of a kratom plant.
Batrogena speciosa.
Yeah.
Batrogena species.
We want the scientific name.
Thank you for that.
Line 32 of the bill.
Yes.
Sorry about that. Okay. And so all of these things, like the 7-hydroxy mitragynine, yes, it exceeds 2%. These are the things that enhance it to make it dangerous.
Yes.
Yes.
So the original, if you just processed it from the original plant at the 0.01 to 2%, what would that do? Does that give you any sort of euphoria? Does it help you with calming you down?
So that is the reason why people push to keep kratom on
The market.
On the market is because it is supposed to be a natural option for energy, mood, pain relief, anxiety. But then they're taking it and extracting it and making it more potent. But that being said, I don't think that we are well versed enough to know if that in itself is very safe. I think as
Are y'all okay? I mean, are y'all okay with the just the plant, what it produced, the 0.01 to 2%?
So I don't know if we are well versed enough to give an answer on that, but I think we all stand on the belief that any product that has opioid involvement in it should be gone through your physician and
Yeah, anything that's
regulated.
addictive, I would
Yes.
agree with you.
Yes.
It needs to be. Do you all prescribe anything with that's derived? Like, would a doctor prescribe anything, say, for anxiety or pain or PSD, anything? Would they prescribe something like that that has anything kratom related in it now?
There's no current FDA-approved use for any kind of prescription kratom products. No.
Okay. So what y'all would prescribe would be Xanax or
Different anxiety or
what's oxycodone. I'm trying to think of some of those names. Okay,
Those are some
but
of
nothing with kratom now. So this stuff is just coming up. It's being sold in convenience stores and things like that.
Yes.
And it's being adulterated into high potency.
Correct. Yes.
And that's our main concern.
Right, and this will fix that.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Thank you so much for
Thank
your
you.
testimony.
Thank you for your time.
Good luck in your careers.
Thank you.
Call your next one.
Mr. Chairman, as I call the next witness, let me point out, there was a question about mortality just a minute or two ago. DPH just sent us late yesterday a document, and you see it on your console. It's a 11-year run from 2015 to 2025. Looks like the fatalities peaked out in 2022 and have actually been somewhat in decline since then. Mr. Chairman, next person to speak to us this morning is Dr. Kirsten Smith.
Dr. Smith? Thank you for coming. Just pull your seat up there towards the microphone and speak into the microphone, if you would, please, ma'am.
Good morning, Chairman and members of the subcommittee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Dr. Kirsten Smith, and I'm providing testimony in opposition to what was the bill yesterday. Now I'm providing testimony to the amendment to the bill. And essentially, I am anything that was scheduled kratom or 7-hydroxymetrogynine, 7-OH in South Carolina is what I'm speaking against. I have studied kratom since 2017 with my work accelerating at NIDA, the National Institute on Drug Abuse, where I was a postdoc for 4 years. I studied physical dependence, substance use disorder, and addiction related to kratom and opioids, and have published over 90 peer-reviewed publications in these areas. I was at Johns Hopkins for 3 years, where I had 2 clinical trials on kratoms and pilot projects examining 7-OH use. I regularly advise and speak to national clinical academic consortiums and continue to work with Hopkins and NIDA to get more data on kratom and 7-OH out. Because we're limited to 3 minutes, I'm going to keep this as quick as I can. I got into this because people were using kratom and now 7-OH to really try to function. This was not to try to get high or get euphoria. Even recognizing the benefits of this and 7-OH and kratom together, I did have concerns about kratom and the newer 7-OH products. I'm one of the few clinical research and licensed clinicians to have collected data on 7-OH. And, I assumed this might be a public health concern. And frankly, in the 3.5 years since 7-OH products came on the market, that concern has not been realized. The initial panic on 7-OH was similar to a decade ago when kratom extracts began proliferating. I and other scientists voiced concerns around toxicity and addiction. Our fears were not realized. Kratom and 7-OH are not categorically dangerous. If they were, I would not be here today. They have benefits and risks which require further study and greater regulation. They should not be scheduled at the federal level. They have not been, neither kratom nor 7-OH. FDA's talking points have been somewhat confused, and I can speak to that, and I would urge you to contrast those with the National Institute on Drug Abuse talking points. I speak to addiction providers regularly. These kratom and 7-OH both are rare among their caseloads. I have to beg them to try to add it to their substance use assessments. In the there have been 15 cases in the last 3 years related to 7-OH published. 2 of them were mine. And, there were no indicators of harm characteristic of typical opioid analgesics, including respiratory depression. In the 14 published cases on 7-OH and kratom-related substance use disorder, the presentations were ambiguous, often with polysubstance use, but with respect to 7-OH, presentations were largely mild. In one case, a patient did have severe substance use disorder for kratom leaf, but these cases are rare. The consumers I've studied overwhelmingly want regulation and these products not to be removed. These include, restricting sales to 21 and up, third-party product testing, wholesome brand names, clear labeling that would distinguish 7-OH from kratom leaf, restrictions on formulations that are not oral, serving size caps, prohibition of sales near schools or in gas stations. These are not opioids, and the fact is 7-OH, I hate to disagree with the people that came before me, 7-OH is the most inefficient molecule you could possibly design. And while kratom alkaloids, speciosialotine, mitragynine, speciogynine, 7-hydroxymitragynine, do act on opioid receptors, these are very atypical. The amount of 7-OH, for instance, in one of these products is 2.7% oral bioavailability, meaning that only that much survives the digestive tract and enters the bloodstream and brain where it can have any effect. These are not quote-unquote opioids by any means. I'm not trying to, this is what I've spent 10 years researching. And I'm here because the consumers who use these products, both kratom and 7-OH, are very self-selected. And I promise you, if these are removed and there's going to be a black market, they're going to go to the next thing that's also not regulated. And, they're simply, some of them are going to go back to the illicit drugs. And so, I wish this were not complex. I wish to God this was a simpler manner. I sat at my desk writing a longer statement because I've talked to lawmakers before, and this is a very hard issue to understand. So I just respectfully ask that you please let the federal process play out, both with kratom and 7-OH, and not prohibit either 7-OH products or the kratom products. They are inextricably linked, and I think that more public health harm will come from the removal rather than any possible risk that currently exists with their being in commerce. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions you have.
Mr. Chairman.
Questions, Vice? Senator from Anderson.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. Dr. Smith, can you tell me where you live, where you practice?
So right now, I'm in the process of leaving academia, and I'm a licensed clinician, but I'm not practicing. I'm actually trying to focus on my family more. So that is what I'm doing now. I am doing some policy work, as you can tell, because I'm here. And I'm still publishing on 7-OH and on kratom and speaking about it to academic groups.
Well, that's fine. I am just trying to.
I'm from Tennessee, not South Carolina. I'm sorry.
From Tennessee?
Sorry, sir. East Tennessee, yes, sir.
Okay. So, help us understand. Well, let me tell you what I understood, which is that the 7-OH is present in low levels in the kratom plant. But you keep saying kratom and 7-OH as if they're different things. So in my mind, they're not different things. It's kind of like THC is in the marijuana plant. But you're talking about them as if they're different things.
Yes, sir. So I'll explain that. It is confusing for people. So bear with me here. Kratom, the botanical, has many alkaloids in it that are just like naturally occurring chemical constituents that have some psychoactive effect. 7-hydroxymitragynine is found in trace amounts in the leaf, so not at very high levels. And some of the products that myself and colleagues have tested, sometimes it's below the lower limit of quantification. So we're talking about a small amount. It is also an active metabolite of kratom, the plant, the leaf. The most abundant alkaloid in the kratom leaf is called mitragynine, and that metabolizes into 7-hydroxymitragynine as its primary metabolite. So when someone consumes a kratom product, they are potentially getting low levels of 7-hydroxymitragynine or 7-OH, but then regardless, mitragynine is converted in the liver and small intestine into 7-OH. And then there's a secondary metabolite, mitragynine pseudoindoxyl. All of that to say, 7-OH is in the kratom leaf, along with other alkaloids that have mu-opioid receptor activity at even greater bioavailability, oral bioavailability than 7-OH. But from a product standpoint, these are now two products. So there's kratom, and then there's 7-OH, which is derived from the kratom leaf material. And I know it's confusing, and I hope that answer helped a bit.
Well, the bottom line is that they're sold as two different products, is what you just said.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I think I heard you say that you'd want us to stay out of this and let the FDA or the federal level handle this. Is that correct?
I mean, I would hope that in a perfect world that there would be regulation fashioned with all these stakeholders involved, medical, industry, all public health officials, SLED, whoever, to come to the table and have some sort of regulation passed wherein these products, kratom and 7-OH, remain legal, but with severely enhanced restrictions and guardrails. That would be my hope. The federal level, both with kratom and 7-OH, has been very protracted, and I think they may or may not do something. And at a minimum, if DEA does try to schedule these products at the federal level, they will be undertaking a very systematic process to do that. And so I guess my hope would be if you were going to schedule kratom or 7-OH in South Carolina, that an equally systematic process would be undertaken.
You mentioned several things about regulation, and I know you were trying to get through your presentation quickly, but I couldn't write them all down. But you mentioned things like third-party testing, labeling, age restriction, and several other things you mentioned. So that sounded like kind of your guardrails regulation-wise to help prevent abuse. Is that correct?
Well, and I think there should be caps both on the amount of alkaloids in the kratom products and also in the amount of 7-OH in the 7-OH products. And I don't think that they should be easily accessible. So, again, perhaps not sold near schools, not sold in places where you have to be. The gas station thing has come up a lot because you can buy some of these products in convenience stores, and I don't think that has served consumers well, because some person who doesn't know what they're doing might walk in and look at a product and think, well, this is innocuous, and try it. Whereas I think a 21 and up place would be much more restrictive.
So when the medical students were up, their opinion was there should be a physician relationship involved. Is that your opinion?
So not with these. I do believe that these would be, believe it or not, I do think that dietary supplements, which is technically what these are marketed as, under DSHEA, which is, the 1994 Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act. I'm not sure what regulatory paradigm or where these fit exactly, but I don't think that at this point as a natural product that the physicians are going to know enough. I think that anyone should consult their physician, but right now these are not being put down a drug development pipeline. They really are being looked at as natural products. Even the National Institute on Drug Abuse put out a notice of special interest to look at these as natural products. So at this point in time, if they are not a drug and they're not a prescribed, FDA-approved medication, I'm not sure how a doctor could prescribe them, but I do believe a doctor would ideally be consulted in their use.
Have you seen this amendment?
I did not even know it existed until about 15 minutes ago or 30 minutes ago.
Could we give her a copy of this amendment?
Certainly.
We're deep into the weeds, Mr. Chairman, of what all this chemistry and what all this means. None of us up here has a clue about these words on this piece of paper.
Thank you, ma'am.
So I don't quite know what to make of this.
Senator, let me just make a comment that the document from South Carolina shows that from 2015 to 2025, an undercount of deaths related to this is 320 people. Now, maybe we can wait on the feds, but I've got 300 some odd families who have lost loved ones to this. And so, from a state point of view, sometimes we can't wait on the federal government to do what it needs to do. We need to put safeguards in place. And I'm hearing from you that we need to have some safeguards, especially if you're using the chemicals at a heightened rate. Is that correct?
So, two things. One, and I have looked at the National Poison Control Center data, not just the CDC publication that was put out, but I've actually looked at the data. So we do have some fatalities associated with both kratom leaf products and also 7-OH products. These are, in terms of raw numbers over a long period of time, relatively rare. And I know that any fatality is not good, but when you look at the actual circumstances of the cases, they all, and I mean invariably, include either polysubstance exposure, including with things like fentanyl in there, even attempted suicides are in there, and then also other very complicating health factors. So I don't take that lightly, nor do I take anything related to addiction, which is my area of expertise, lightly either. But from a relative risk standpoint, it is just the fact that these products, both kratom and 7-OH, are not sounding an alarm bell or public health signal on par with anything else that we see. And so while I would say we have to certainly reduce the risk for anything, it is, we do have fatalities from Tylenol. And I'm not saying that to be funny or cute or minimize, but most things do have some adverse consequences. And so the question is it net detriment or net benefit? And I do think that there's enough benefit with these products that to remove them from commerce could actually inadvertently be very bad. And I don't say that lightly.
All right, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Charles.
Just wanted to comment on the sheet that we have here about the mortality rate. And so I, too, am very unfamiliar with kratom, but I met with an individual yesterday about this, and I'm looking at a chart that was handed to me with some data from the Department of Public Health regarding overdoses. And so what I was explaining is that, and what I want to make sure, and if we can get clarity on this form where you see the 25 deaths, it was explained to me that, for example, I have something that shows in 2025, let's say fatal overdose cases, 2024, there may have been a certain number, but they were, the mitragynine, is that how you pronounce it? It was co-occurring. And so, but then I was explaining that when you look at the mitragynine alone, the number is a lot lower, meaning that perhaps the deaths, people may have had kratom or the mitragynine co-mingling with some other substance that contributed to the death. And so what I want to be sure before we take this for what it is, I'd really like to know, because I think it's important to know, is the 7-OH or the mitragynine, is that the determinant cause of death? Are people overdosing alone on that, or is it when they mix the mitragynine with other opioids and other substances that then accelerates the overdose? And so I think that's important.
The literature suggests that. Everything that I've read suggests what you're just saying. Again, but it's
certainly a concern.
We got to stop somehow, some way, or regulate it. And my question earlier was, if it's that good, then it should be scheduled and then prescribed by our doctors. If it's that good, or if it's contraindicated with other medicines, the people that are taking it ought to know about.
To not mix it, yeah. And just one other question because I know you said the kratom and the leaf and the 7-OH are different. My understanding is that the 7-OH is the mechanism that relieves the pain. Is that true or no?
So yes and no. So kratom as a botanical has several dozen alkaloids. Let's say 14 of them are really important. Some of them do have activity at mu-opioid receptors. Mitragynine is a partial agonist of mu-opioid receptors, and again, that's that major alkaloid. It also has non-opioid activity, a lot of non-opioid activity. So some of the effects from kratom are mediated by various systems, and we talked about energy, and mood and things like that. So there's a lot of serotonergic, alpha-adrenergic, downstream dopaminergic activity, but it's all very complex and it's kind of working together is a good way to think about it. But we know that kratom actually can alleviate pain through serotonin systems as well, which is not talked about as much. So it's kind of complicated how it works, but all of that to say, 7-OH is only one part of a very complicated botanical.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Mr. Chairman.
Anything further?
Mr.
Senator-
Chairman.
I'm sorry. Senator Burton?
I think I'd like to ask Dr. Smith some questions.
Certainly.
You're a licensed clinician transitioning out of academia.
I am thankfully leaving academia. I was there for a while and I enjoyed my time there, but I think it is time to move on to do other stuff.
And you've worked in this field of addiction. In what field are you licensed?
So I have a license. So I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and then I also have a PhD. So I basically went straight from my PhD program to NIDA, the National Institute on Drug Abuse, and I did a 4-year postdoctoral training there. And then that's I'd interacted with patients clinically using many substances, but I first learned about 7-OH when I was doing my training in Kentucky, and so that's where I heard about kratom in 2015. And then at NIDA, I ended up deciding to go down a research path, and that's where I really started working on this earnestly, and then continued that work at Hopkins. So I am a researcher more than anything else. That is what I've spent the last decade doing.
Mr. Chairman, I would hope that Dr. Smith would be able to leave her abbreviated remarks with us, and you say you have an extended document as well that had you had time, I hope that you could leave that with the committee.
I submitted via email a
You did?
longer document,
Very good.
and then I promise, I'm happy to meet with anyone at any time. It is complicated, right? This is not easy, and so I'm happy to talk at any point.
So please leave your phone number as well, address and phone number so we can communicate with you, email address.
Yeah, it should be in the document I sent, but
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
I'll resend that.
Thank you very
All right,
much.
thank you all, gentlemen, very much. I appreciate it.
In terms of the DPH document,
Yes, sir.
I'm hoping that you will have some live testimony from DPH to further elucidate on this matter.
Certainly. You want
Mr. Chairman,
to, sir? Yes,
can I just ask a question of the committee? Because I've been getting a lot of emails about this. Didn't we pass something dealing with kratom last year? Where's all that working out? Where's the results of that? Is that making a difference? Do we have enough information?
As I understood, it got changed in the House where they allowed the synthetics to continue. What we had done initially, I think, was to ban the synthetics, but it got put back in the House. Is that a correct statement?
Mr. Chairman, it was amended actually in the Senate.
Senate? Okay.
Yes, sir. And then the House took our version. And so, again, if you'll look at what's on your console
Okay.
and page down to the colored area, the left panel is 221 as it was filed by Senator Ott in the beginning. The middle panel is the amendment that the Senate put on, which was accepted later on by the House, and the third panel is 4641 from Representative Pope, the bill we're discussing now.
Okay, so basically the yellow is current law.
Right.
And how long has that been current law till we have time to figure out how it's working?
Year.
So it went into law. It's been in law probably not a year yet, or close to a year. Do we have any data from that right now, or no one?
Like I said, I find it odd that somebody files a bill when something's already passed the General Assembly and kind of working. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
I don't want to pass something out of here, and it ends up. Why did we pass something last year? I mean, that's kind of what I'm getting at. I'm not trying to give anybody a hard time.
SLED may be able to give us some idea of what's going on.
I'm getting a lot of emails from people, and I think there's probably some stuff that's not good with some of the synthetics, but I mean, if that leaf form is natural and we've already got legislation on it, I guess I'm just at a little bit of a loss what we're trying to accomplish. Again, if somebody can help me with that, I would really appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
is it possible we could hear from SLED because they can answer some of what he's getting at if there's something they believe more than, or something that we did that wasn't quite right, they might have an opinion on that.
I'd like to hear from SLED and DPH. So let's go ahead and go with SLED now.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, Todd Huey is here, and I believe he can address this from a scientific point of view.
Mr. Chairman, while he's coming, did you say you do have the contact information for Dr. Smith?
Yes. We do.
Because I wanted to ask her some questions, but didn't get the opportunity.
I apologize.
No, it's
we
fine.
can call her back if need be.
I think the main chairman took over, and which is perfectly fine.
Well, good morning, Mr. Chairman and subcommittee members. My name is Dr. Todd Huey. I am the laboratory director for the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, Forensic Science Division. I am a trained pharmacologist, toxicologist, and I have actually done research in natural products many years ago, but I've been at SLED 30 years this year. A lot has been said about this kratom product, and I know it can be confusing for non-scientists. But just to maybe back up a little bit, this plant originates in Southeast Asia. Typically, they harvest the leaves, and in what normally happens in that part of the world, day laborers, they will chew on the leaf to get the effects of the kratom, you might say, the stimulant effects. These are occurring at very low doses. What we're seeing in the United States, though, is typically not that product, or they steep it into a tea to make a drink. So it's very low concentrations of the drug actually getting in the body, and you can self-titrate. You drink or chew as much as you want to get the effects you're after. What we're seeing in the United States is a shift from that product. What we're seeing from a law enforcement and a laboratory perspective, as we've heard testimony here today, we're seeing highly concentrated, purified tablets, gummies, energy drinks, and these small little concentrated ampules that are causing some of the negative health effects that we're seeing in the laboratory. The 7-OH we talked about, I think it is a public health concern based on how it's being marketed and distributed in South Carolina particularly. We're seeing increased instances in our drug chemistry lab and our toxicology lab, both in ante and post-mortem samples that we're working up. And so I would elaborate, though. I know I've heard some deaths attributed to this compound in its, by standing alone. However, what we're seeing in the laboratory in South Carolina, it is a polydrug substance. I mean, we're seeing it mixed in with other opiates, other illicit compounds such as MDMA. We're seeing it in benzos. We're seeing it in, just illicit heroin, different preparations, fentanyl. And so all those compounds together have the tendency in many cases to cause respiratory depression, just like fentanyl alone. If you can't breathe, your heart's going to become hypoxic and you're going to die. And so I do admit that there probably are some health benefits at very low concentrations. That's not what we're seeing here in these gas stations that are marketing these products. And I don't think it's marketed or referred to as gas station heroin for no reason. So again, we're not seeing a lot of the leaf. We're seeing these capsules, these gummies. And just to back up, you, Mr. Chairman, I think you said something a minute ago. We're living this right now in the laboratory with hemp and marijuana and THC. If you genetically engineer a hemp plant to contain less than 0.3% THC, the active psychoactive component, you can smoke it, you can do whatever you want to with that plant material, and it will not produce any effects on the human body. Very minimal, probably not even perceptible. But that's a 0.3%. But what happens, and I'm concerned, I heard talk about limiting it, the 7-OH, to 2% or less. The issue becomes there is twofold for me. In the plant, it is a very trace amount of drug, and I agree that probably would not cause anybody any negative side effects, health effects. However, just like in hemp and with THC, if we leave that 2% in the plant is a very low trace amount. However, if I purify that and put it in a heavy gummy or a heavy liquid beverage or any capsule, it's going to become now quite a high concentration of 7-OH, just like we're seeing with THC, because in the hemp plant, 0.3% is negligible. In a beverage of water, a water bottle of 12 ounces, you can have, they're putting 20, 40, 60, 80, 100 milligrams. That's more than I would ever be able to get out of the marijuana plant smoking it or using it as, say, a pre-roll. So again, I want to caution the committee about this 2%, but as a pharmacologist, toxicologist, state lab director, we are more concerned about the products that are marketed as 7-OH strictly, and we see those advertisements in pretty much all convenience stores that you travel and see. But again, we are concerned about it. We are seeing increased instances of it.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
All right, so I think we're getting on to maybe part of the primary issue here, which is if a plant can have up to 2%.
That would be on the high end.
That's one thing.
Yes, sir.
But once you purify it and you put it into a tablet or a gummy, now you're talking about something that's amped up. It's not in the same category as chewing on the leaf.
No,
Is that
sir.
what you're saying? It's kind of like the same thing with hemp.
Right.
In the legal definition of hemp, no more than 0.3% or 0.03% dry weight.
Mm-hmm.
But then you purify it and you put it into things, and before you know it, you've got all these multiple milligram servings.
Right.
So if you were following the approach of servings, are you saying that you would not want a serving? How would you say what a serving, if you're going by 2% being somewhat safe, then how would you define a serving?
2% is considered safe in the actual plant material. If I'm going to chew it, extract it, and I keep that same indole alkaloid profile, it's going to be a very trace amount. However, and I haven't even touched on the synthetic, the oxidative steps you can go through in a laboratory to convert, kratom into 7-OH. When you do that, we have no ability in the laboratory to determine if that's a naturally occurring 7-OH product or a kratom product, or has it been genetically or chemically engineered, you might say, in the laboratory. Because you can convert kratom, mitragynine, to 7-OH very easily in a laboratory. And that's where the potency comes from. That's what people are after. So that's why you see this proliferation of products that are highly concentrated, purified forms of 7-OH. Because the potential user in that case may not be looking for the health benefits. They may actually be looking for that euphoric effect. Again, the only thing that determines whether something has health benefits or if it's toxic to the body is typically the concentration.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
Then, for instance, in the federal, it came back in November as it relates to hemp. There's some statement that they're going to have 0.04% per serving. Mm-hmm. And so if we had to use your science to talk about the H70, the problem with that in a serving, how much would that be to make it equivalent to what it is in a plant?
I would have to do the math on that. However, I would tell you, mostly things that are considered medications, you receive a certain dose and a frequency, a milligram strength of this product at certain time intervals. That's typically how medication is dispensed in the United States. These herbal supplements, like this is dietary supplements, however you want to circumvent the regular laws, it's the owner determines what the dose is. So it would be very difficult to manage that as serving sizes. I know we had something the other day, I think, that was submitted to the laboratory. And if you looked at the tablet, it was scored. It was a small tablet, but it was scored in force. So technically, a serving was 1/4 of that tablet. That would be very difficult to cut, to break apart, and only take the one instead of the whole tablet, or the quarter of it instead of the whole tablet. So when you start talking servings, typically that can be manipulated to meet or stay under the defined limit. You just increase the number of servings in a particular product to try to circumvent that requirement. So I think you would have to limit the total alkaloids in a product, and I think that's been mentioned here several times before, to keep that below a threshold that would potentially have some increased safety margin for the user.
And so you think you could do that calculation for us to give us some?
I could look at that, yeah, and just see. But again, it's going to depend on the substrate that is put into.
Senator Schwarber.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I apologize. I had another meeting, and I thought Kratom was going to be last, so I figured I'd get here before it started. But anyway, and I may have missed something, but is there anybody here today to sign up for testify, or if there's anybody here that's already testified that actually uses this and maybe could get to, okay, one or two. I was just wondering if anybody has signed up so we could hear. Is that coming next? Okay, all right. I'm sorry about that. I wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Chairman.
I thought you were coming to the Center for Natural. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The botanical natural selection plant breeding that has taken place in 50 years with marijuana.
Yes, sir. You can genetically modify plants.
That's been the historic amplification of and concentration of the psychoactive ingredients in that plant line.
Yes, sir.
Is that not the same case here? That I assume this plant has been around for millennia in Southeast Asia. What is going on in the terms of plant breeding for the purpose? I hear of a lot of synthesization and concentration laboratorily.
Right. And I have not really researched what's happening in Southeast Asia where these plants grow. And they're very tall. I think they can be like 50 feet high and have all these leaves that are harvested. So again, I don't know if they're intentionally going out and trying to modify, because typically it's easier to do that in a laboratory setting. If you have the initial product, then you, just like THC, if you can isolate that, or if you have CBD, which is perfectly non-psychoactive, but if you have an abundance of CBD with no market, you can get creative and say, well, I can convert that CBD into something that does have psychoactive properties, such as Delta-8, Delta-10 THC, and that's what we see take place. If you're a chemist and you're in the research field, especially natural products, you isolate a compound that has activity, and then you go in there and you structurally modify that compound and do receptor binding studies to see, can I create a compound or identify a compound that will have more effects, say, of heroin?
I get that.
Right.
You've done some anti and post-mortem
We do.
analysis.
We do anti and post-mortem samples testing.
Are you in conjunction with the Department of Public Health in any way on this document? Mr. Chairman, I still want to get to the root of this document that's up on the screen.
Please continue.
Because this issue of kratom mortality is what's going to determine how we spend our next 5 days here.
Right. I can tell you.
Because right now, the prospects of this bill crossing the finish line are not, I would say, negligible, unless there is an overwhelming import brought to it based on some real critical factors, and mortality is one of them. So we have before us a document that's been presented by ostensibly DPH. You've talked about your post-mortem analysis. We've got to get to the bottom of whether or not this, we all know it's addictive. I want to know if it's debilitating. I want to know if it's killing people.
Right. Senator, all I can say is that at the state lab, actually we're starting to see this, like I said, in post-mortem cases where people have died. I do not know of a case, it may be there, but I'm not aware of it, to where that was the only chemical compound in this person's body.
You said poly. It's a
Yeah, poly. So you have other CNS depressants typically, or stimulants there, that in conjunction, because that's what we're seeing even in our drug chemistry laboratory. Back in the day, 10, 15 years ago, we would see submissions of just ecstasy or just heroin or cocaine, or now we don't see that anymore. We see these compounds coming in that are cut and mixed with multiple psychoactive compounds. They're chasing that high, and that's why fentanyl, which has legitimate medical uses, has now been, and it's cheap to make, so they've added that to some other opioids, heroin and things, because you're just trying to potentiate the psychoactive effects. That's what the user is chasing in some situations. And so I'm telling you, we are seeing increases in 7-OH and mitragynine in these death cases, but we're also seeing other compounds in there that could, so it's a contributing factor. Anytime you have multiple compounds that can cause CNS depression or respiratory depression, it's going to tend to have a tendency to stop someone from breathing. And if without medical assistance, they're going to usually expire from that.
The toxicity that comes in the bloodstream from depressed respiration.
And obviously, I don't administer naloxone in the laboratory, but I have seen references to where 7-OH abuse, dependency, addiction, in certain high concentrations that an individual may ingest or consume, it will take multiple doses of naloxone to reverse that toxicity.
Thanks, Doc. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
I've got 3 witnesses that have flown in that I want to make sure I get to them, and then I want to also make sure that we get to some of the individuals involved. Is it a question as to this witness?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
So I'm also trying to get back to the senator from Spartanburg's question. We passed a bill about kratom. So from a law enforcement standpoint, was the bill we passed last year helpful? And can you speak from a law enforcement standpoint as to whether this bill that's before us is moving us in the right direction based upon whatever you think the effect of the first bill was? I mean, I think that's a little bit of what the senator from Spartanburg wanted to know. It's certainly what I want to know is that.
And I think what you're referring to is Article 20 of Chapter 53, Title 44, relating to the South Carolina Kratom Consumer Protection Act. From the laboratory standpoint, we really see no impact in this piece of legislation. I'm not in the enforcement arm of SLED, so I know typically just looking at this, I think the only thing that could be enforced there would be potentially the age restriction. So again, I can't really give you good information at this moment about what the effectiveness of this piece of legislation is. I know in the laboratory we're continuing to see it submitted to the lab, but it's not typically in the controlled substance laboratory.
How do you view the current bill in terms of the intent of the bill that came out of the House and to whether you think it's helpful to regulating, controlling, banning exactly what that bill's doing? I mean, how do you view it?
Right. Well, I believe it is a problem, public health concern, and I just had an opportunity to get the amended version of the bill, so I was trying to scan it very quickly. One of my concerns is, again, we've heard testimonies. Some states have just banned kratom all out. Some have taken a more selective approach where they're banning the 7-OH form of the drug. One state is even trying to limit it at 2% 7-OH in these products. Again, 2%, depending on how it's defined, could be a nightmare. It could allow for very high concentrations of 7-OH to still be available to the public. And so I'm from the laboratory standpoint, if it is scheduled, as a Schedule 1, that will limit research on it. However, it will make it illicit, and but if we do any kind of percentage, it's going to require the laboratory in our forensic testing for criminal justice systems to do quantitative analysis, like we're having to do for hemp and THC right now, which would slow down the process considerably.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right,
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Raymond.
Forgive me, I'm extremely busy this morning, double booked and things I have to take care of. The way I see this is similar to hemp or marijuana. You got a naturally occurring plant here that has some medicinal effect, and then you have it being altered from its natural state. Looking at it from a Christian worldview, you have a plant that God put on this planet, and it's discovered that can help with certain things. But then you have fallen man who would come in and maybe adding things and adulterating it, maybe improving it. A lot of our medicines are God-given, I believe. I discovered back during COVID, the chairman was so gracious to let me chair subcommittees on post-COVID hearings where we learned a lot. I came away from the COVID experience, and this goes back to Dr. Smith's testimony, which seemingly to me was in somewhat conflict with other testimonies or of a varying opinion, that I have lost a lot of, which is the reason I'm glad that you're speaking, the reason I'm speaking to you now, that I've lost a lot of faith in science, to be frank with you. Every time there's a scientific research study done, somebody pays for that. And what I'm learning, and what I have learned over the past 5 years, is often you get the results you pay for, which is sad, which is not the way science should be done. Dr. Smith reminded me of a good friend of mine, Andrew Recknagel, who was a scientist, worked in different labs, worked in some labs funded by the Howard Hughes Institute, who, like perhaps Dr. Smith, was so disgruntled with science that he left and got out of the scientific research world because of what he saw going on there, which puts you in a good position because you're paid by the state. But my question to you is, as a scientist, I like Chief Keel. I consider him a friend, and I think he's done a fantastic job at SLED. I hope he continues to do that. Do you feel any pressure delivering messages to us in regards to items like this from, we'll say, people up the line in chain? Because what I'm trying to do is figure out truth in science research.
No, sir. I feel no pressure whatsoever. Chief Keel never exerts what I should be saying or how I should say it. He recognizes that I am a trained scientist. I've got many years of research experience under my belt, and I'm not going to conform to anything other than what based on the science that I'm aware of and can study.
That's the answer I was expecting to hear.
I will agree, though. As a medicinal chemist as well, back in my early days, you're right. God created a lot of plants out there, and a lot of them have very, very beneficial medicinal uses. What I get concerned about is when you have a plant, say potentially like this, kratom, and it may have some medicinal effects at low concentrations, and that's typically the way our receptors react. However, there's always entities, and typically it's for profit, that want to capitalize on that, and they take what's occurring in the plant naturally, and they're chemically modifying it. And again, I'm saying from a pharmaceutical background as well, that's what you do, but you don't develop products that are just for euphoria and the traditional get people high, because it does sometimes negate the beneficial uses of those same products at low concentrations. CBD has some beneficial effects. Unfortunately, it's in a plant that has THC in it. And so they genetically engineered strains of that plant that would produce high CBD, low THC. That's admirable from a pharmacology standpoint in medicinal chemistry. But what we're seeing here is if it's used the way maybe it was intended, the way it grows naturally, and you have that full spectrum approach, that's one thing. But when you start manipulating it, chemically synthesizing, altering it, for, I think, the negative side effects of the plant, then I think that's where, as a scientist, I have to speak out against that.
Right, and I would agree with you to a point, but wouldn't you say that, like, say, Oxycontin, pain medicine, that may not be a good example. That's totally synthetic, isn't it? Or is that plant-derived? Let's talk about it.
It is, but, right, it is.
Well, opium. Opium is derived from a natural plant.
A poppy. Mm-hmm.
A poppy, right.
Yep.
And it is intervened by man to create
you can create heroin from it and morphine
right,
and everything else. Those are derivatives from that plant.
Right, which is legitimately used in hospitals.
It is. Right.
Gotcha. So while you and I agree, we have to also look at the fact that that's the process sometimes.
Right.
Know.
And for Oxycontin, there's really nothing wrong with that drug if it's used under medical supervision. You limit the duration. What we saw in the laboratory, again, is if you have sustained release preparations, there are individuals that want all of that dose at one time. So you can crush it, do whatever you need to, and then you get that bolus effect. And if you continue to do that, you do develop dependency in that form and fashion.
I would tend to agree. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Thank you very much for your testimony. Will you be available if we need to call you, especially as it relates to the percentages, if we get down to that point, to help us with those numbers?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Call the FDA.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, and I believe I'm getting this correct. Mr. Bradshaw,
I believe you were formerly associated with FDA. Is that correct, sir?
That's correct.
Thank you, Mr. Bradshaw. State your name for our record, please, sir.
Yes, Sheldon Bradshaw. I represent Botanicals for Better Health and Wellness.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, so thanks for having me. So I'm actually an FDA regulatory attorney and previously served as the chief counsel of the United States Food and Drug Administration for many years, where I was the legal advisor to the commissioner and the other senior leaders of the FDA on issues related both to botanicals and drug products. But more importantly, I actually started my legal career here in South Carolina. My first job out of law school was as a law clerk to the Honorable Karen J. Williams on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit. I was one of her law clerks, and it was a great way to start my legal career.
Absolutely.
BBHW advocates for evidence-based regulation of plant-derived products, and as a result, we support efforts to ban chemically manipulated synthetic drugs that masquerade as botanicals, such as 7-hydroxymitragynine. But with respect to the botanical kratom, we encourage state governments to enact Kratom Consumer Protection Acts, which place common sense regulations on natural botanicals, including age gating, testing, labeling requirements, rather than an outright ban of the natural botanical. And importantly, and I see Senator Martin has left, but he asked this question about what you did last year. And last year, South Carolina enacted what I would call a modified Kratom Consumer Protection Act. So it did half of the two things that normal Kratom Consumer Protection Acts do. They normally regulate kratom and ban 7-OH. And what happened last year in South Carolina is you only did half of that. You regulated kratom, but you didn't ban the 7-OH. And I've reviewed, and although I'm in opposition to the legislation that came from the House, because perhaps unwittingly, and maybe this was not their intent, it does in fact ban kratom, and would have the effect of completely undoing everything you did last year with the Kratom Consumer Protection Act. It would, in essence, repeal it, because last year the state of South Carolina decided to regulate kratom. This legislation would ban it. I've reviewed the amendment proposed by the South Carolina Medical Association, and I think it does cure both of those problems. It makes it clear that the Kratom Consumer Protection Act still regulates kratom. It's still, natural kratom is still lawful, but takes the step of then banning the synthetic products that are so dangerous. So I speak in opposition to 4641 in its current form, but would support it if the amendment proposed by the South Carolina Medical Association is enacted.
Did you understand about the 2%? In other words, the natural plant, of course.
Yeah, I do.
There's some of that small amount of that compound.
Yeah,
the 2%.
Yeah, there's typically less than that. But just actually to clarify that point,
okay.
If you were to pluck a kratom leaf from a tree and test it, you wouldn't find 7-OH in the plant. 7-OH comes after it's an artifact post-harvest due to oxidation.
Okay.
So when the leaves are drying due to oxidation, trace amounts of one of the compounds in the mitragynine, in the kratom leaf, mitragynine, converts into 7-hydroxymitragynase, but it's truly in trace amounts. But that happens post-harvest. But what has happened is some entrepreneuring chemists have discovered that you can that mitragynine, one of the alkaloids in the kratom leaf, will convert into 7-OH. And so these entrepreneuring chemists said, well, you know what? Let's speed up that process. Let's just extract mitragynine, then we'll expose the mitragynine to harsh, toxic, oxidizing chemicals, the kind of chemicals that you might see in products like Drano and Pool Shock or bleach. And we're going to force through chemistry the oxidation of the mitragynine into pure semi-synthetic 7-OH. And that should be banned. That's not natural kratom. In fact, I think one of the problems we have is a nomenclature problem. Kratom is the natural leaf. 7-hydroxymitragynine that we see in products today is synthetically derived rather than being part of the natural plant.
So should it be banned completely, that part?
Yeah, I would say synthetic 7-H should be banned.
Okay.
The only thing I would say about kratom, and I think this is what the amendment is intended to do, is because there's going to be trace amounts of 7-OH in the kratom leaf thanks to the post-harvest oxidation,
right,
you do want to allow for some amount of 7-OH, a de minimis amount, trace amounts in the natural kratom products.
They were talking 2%. Is that too high, too low?
Well, I think that's what you see in a lot of legislation, and there seems to be evidence that below that amount, the amount of 7-OH doesn't alter the product in a way that causes the same problems.
Should it be 0.02 or 0.2?
Yeah, well, some states use sort of a different formulation rather than the 2%. Like Florida, for example, describes it in parts per million. I think they allow, when they scheduled 7-OH, it was above, I think, 400 parts per million. And that way, that alleviates, I think, maybe some of the concerns that the scientist from SLED was referring to make sure that when you have a higher volume product, that you're still not getting much or allowing for much 7-OH in that product. But I think that the amendment proposed by the South Carolina Medical Association is consistent with what you see in most KCPAs, that 2% rule.
And let me recap with you. Yeah. Let me mention this. What you were not here. He's identified that the bill that we passed dealt only with kratom and did not regulated kratom, but did not deal with the more dangerous chemical, the synthetic. And a small amount of that occurs in the plant after harvesting, and that's okay. But to take it and then take it to a laboratory and explode it is what's causing all the problems, or that's what appears to be the case. And he believes that this solves the problem, the amendment. That's
right. That's right. The amendment proposed by the South Carolina Medical Association, one, makes sure that the bill doesn't unwittingly ban natural kratom products, which I think the version you received from the House does, and then takes the step that South Carolina failed to take last year, which is in addition to placing common sense regulations on kratom, it also then bans synthetic derivatives like 7-OH, but also puts a cap on how much 7-OH you could have in a natural kratom product.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, Senator Anderson.
So as far as the regulations that were put into effect last year, did we miss anything that you think should be in there that would be helpful in the regulatory framework that was put in last year?
Yeah, I mean, the most important thing, the number one thing that was missing is what the amendment proposed by the South Carolina.
I understand about the 7-OH,
yeah.
But I mean in the age limit stuff like that.
Yeah, no, it does good things. It includes the age gating. You have to be 21 in order to purchase it. It requires certain labeling statements on the product, and it requires. But the one thing that because it doesn't discuss 7-OH, I'm not sure it has a testing requirement like other KCPAs. I'd have to go back and look at the language.
Third-party testing?
Yeah, but a lot of KCPAs require testing to confirm that the product, in fact, only does not have 7-OH or has 7-OH below whatever that amount is. And then an additional requirement, not only for the testing, but a requirement that information be included on the label of the product itself. That way, if you picked up a legitimate kratom product, you would see on the label something like product contains less than, whatever the number is, 7-OH. That shows, and a lot of companies also have QR codes on their products where you can actually see the certificate of analysis that was performed by the lab that actually shows that the product was tested for 7-OH.
All right,
And-
so that ties back, I think, to what you were saying about Florida. They ban it if the product would have above 400 parts per million of the 7-OH.
That's right. So what happened is that happened back in early August of 2025, but that came on the heels of the FDA's announcement that they had made a recommendation to the DEA to schedule 7-OH, and the FDA commissioner at the time, back in July of 2025, made it very clear that the FDA's concern was with 7-OH and not natural kratom. They held a press conference in July, made it very clear that the FDA was not interested in the ancient botanical kratom.
So if you had third-party testing with some limitation on the amount of 7-OH, are you satisfied that would prevent abuses, or is there an easy way to get around that?
Well, unfortunately, from my time at the FDA, I've found that, it's difficult to stop any product from being abused. I mean, the products you see abused very frequently are things even like acetaminophen, ibuprofen, over-the-counter drug products. So the FDA standard is actually not whether something taken in any amount could cause some harm. The question the FDA poses is whether or not a product can be safely taken when used according to the directions set forth in the label. And so, yeah, any product can be intentionally misused or abused, but the question is it safe when used according to the directions in the label?
Okay, thank you.
All right, anything further? Call your next witness.
Mr. Chairman, we have Mr. Thomas Beckham of Outpost Brands.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Beckham. State your name for our record, please, sir.
Chairman and members of the committee, my name is Thomas Beckham, and I'm the owner of a kratom alkaloid contract manufacturing company here in South Carolina. I'm here today to oppose the bill as written, as well as oppose the amendment referenced by Botanicals for Better Wellness. Before I start, I'd like to refute a few points that have been made in prior testimony here. First, last year's KCPA already banned synthetic alkaloids. You can check the text for yourself. It is very clear. I encourage you to review that language. If 7-O is synthetic, then it is already illegal. Second, Florida already rolled back its scheduling of 7-OH due to being unable to substantiate any claims around danger. The emergency scheduling expires on July 1st, and 7-O will be legal again in Florida. The amendment recommending a 2% limit on 7-OH is nonsensical. In practice, this means that my company could manufacture or could not manufacture a 5 milligram 7-OH product. However, I could manufacture a 5 milligram 7-OH product paired with 250 milligrams of metrogenine. 250 milligrams of metrogenine, which the liver converts into 7-OH at a rate of about 20 to 30%. This means the effective 7-OH in that product would be, that someone would ingest from that legal product would be roughly 55 to 80 milligrams of 7-OH. This methodology of regulation doesn't work. What would make sense is a dosage limit based on milligrams and servings for all kratom alkaloids, a regulatory process that is not present in the current bill or the amendment. Look, when South Carolina passed its Kratom Consumer Protection Framework last year, my company took notice. We made the decision to move our manufacturing operations to Jasper County, directly because of the legislative clarity, or the regulatory clarity that this legislature demonstrated. We currently employ over 140 people in Jasper County, and we're on track to employ 200 South Carolinians by the end of this year. That investment in those jobs are a direct result of this state choosing smart regulation over prohibition. This bill as written would put my company out of business or force it to move out of state. The science supports this industry's safety profile. Several physicians and doctors or scientists have spoken here today and testified that overdose deaths are from polydrug exposure. Dr. Smith testified that substance use disorder is exceedingly rare for kratom and 7-OH. According to CDC data, South Carolina overdose deaths have fallen nearly 15% in the last 12 months. This occurred during the same time period that kratom and natural 7-OH remained available on the regulated market through last year's KCPA.
1 minute. You have 1 minute, sir.
Okay. You may hear some...
Mr. Chairman, he's flown in. I'd just like to ask unanimous consent just to let the man finish.
All right.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. You may hear some alarming figures like poison control calls related to kratom increased 1,200% over the past decade. That figure leaves out some vital context. In 2025, that represents 3,434 total calls nationwide, out of an estimated 15 million kratom consumers. That's a contact rate of less than 0.02%. The alarm in that statistic disappears the moment you add the context. The data does not support these products are driving a public health emergency. It supports that the current laws and regulatory framework present in South Carolina are working. Prohibition does not work. When we remove a lower risk product and from a lower risk regulated product from a community that still has demand, the demand relocates. It relocates to untested, unregulated, unlabeled, and often illicit products. It takes a legal, regulated economy that's generating jobs and a livelihood for South Carolinians and pushes it into the hands of illicit market participants and cartels. We're an industry that welcomes and is proactively seeking regulation. South Carolina's law is consistent with where responsible federal regulation is heading. The regulatory bill passed by this legislature last session created a regulatory framework that encouraged businesses like mine to move to South Carolina and is working, evidenced by the 15% reduction in South Carolina overdose deaths in 2025. It banned fully synthetic alkaloids, protected minors by age-gating products, it required third-party testing, and mandated accurate labeling. I urge this committee to preserve last year's KCPA. The jobs, the consumers, and the science are all pointing in the same direction. Thank you.
Any questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Senator from Anderson.
All right, so if I get it wrong, it's not because I'm trying to, okay? But Absolutely. Your company is producing the synthetic 70H, is that correct?
So my company we're a contract manufacturing company. We manufacture everything from standard dietary supplement products through to kratom alkaloid products. So we manufacture products that contain both metrogenine and 70H, not a synthetic 70H. Everything is derived from the kratom plant.
Well, I'm not quite understanding your position since you're against the bill and you're against the amendment.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to have to slow down a little bit and tell me what it is you're doing that would put you out of business, apparently, if this amendment or this bill passed.
Absolutely. So this bill, as currently written, bans essentially all alkaloids from the kratom plant. It bans metrogenine, it bans 7-hydroxymetrogenine, the two most common alkaloids, and really the only commercially viable alkaloids in the plant. So it would in essence ban kratom as a whole from both being manufactured, distributed, or retailed in this state, which would remove our entire, also call it kratom operation. And
all right, well, you've lost me because the other people didn't seem to say that it would ban kratom. They seemed to say that kratom products would be okay.
So that's for the amendment.
He's talking about the House bill, not the amendment.
Yes, so the House bill would ban it, and then the amendment changes that. The amendment would not put us out of business. The amendment is just very poorly written because of the 2% law. The idea that 2% 7-hydroxy being or 7-OH being a maximum limit for a product it just doesn't make sense. So to reiterate my example, I would be barred from manufacturing a product that contains 5 milligrams of 7-OH. However, I could make a product that contains 5 milligrams of 7-OH paired with 250 milligrams of metrogenine. Both products contain 7-OH. One is significantly more potent and is paired with 250 milligrams of metrogenine. The other one is just 5 milligrams of 7-OH, and the lower dose product would be illegal under that amendment.
Senator, we've got one more witness I'd like to get to.
Okay.
And we got a dead stop here at 11. Would you be willing to help us craft something that we want to listen? We're all about businesses in South Carolina and helping employ people. So we want to make sure that what we do is comparable and takes care, does the regulations, but at the same time, and we don't want any South Carolinians to die.
Absolutely.
So if you can work with us, that would be helpful in crafting whatever legislation that we finally. But you'd be willing to help us with that?
Absolutely. I'd be more than willing to. And
so we need to make sure we have his number, his phone number, and his address.
Yeah.
Senator Graybill?
Yes. Yeah, Mr. Chairman. And I would tend to agree with you that I don't like the way this is crafted, particularly on section 1A, 2A. I mean, that's all over the place.
Yeah.
They've got a dead stop.
Thank you.
And I'd like to add, and thank you for that. I'd be more than willing to work with this committee and anyone really on crafting smart regulation. And there is a pathway to smart, sensible regulation that protects people and protects consumers. It mitigates as much downside risk as humanly possible, but still enables safe and adult use, adult access.
Thank you so much for your testimony.
Thank you.
Call you next week.
Mr. Chairman, we have Joseph Petrie of Kava and Kratom Retailers Association.
Will that be all of them?
That's the ones I know of.
Good morning. Thank you, sir. Please state your name for our record.
Joseph Petrie. Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, Senators. My name is Joseph Petrie. I'm here on behalf of the Kava and Kratom Retailers Association, and I'm here today to respectfully oppose House Bill 4641 as it was originally before the amendment. I've not reviewed the amendment. Originally, though, lumping natural kratom in with 7-OH and scheduling them both. That's my issue. Before I get into the science, why its proposed classification as a Schedule I drug is not supported by scientific evidence, and why its prohibition could exacerbate the U.S. opioid epidemic, I'll take a few minutes to establish my credibility. I'm a mental health and substance abuse expert with more than 20 years of professional experience treating substance use disorders. As the founder and CEO of a large substance abuse treatment facility in Florida, I was recognized by Florida Blue, the largest insurer in the state of Florida, for developing innovative methods that produce superior outcomes for their members. I've also advised members of the Florida legislature on opioid use disorder and treatment throughout the prior waves of the U.S. opioid epidemic. I consider myself an expert on the subject matter being discussed here today. At the outset, I wish to thank the Assembly for its efforts to protect public health, but I respectfully disagree that outlawing natural kratom is in the interest of public health. Having spent 2 decades treating opioid use disorder, the lens through which I view kratom enables me to see an incredibly valuable resource, one associated with discontinued or reduced opioid use for many individuals, the elimination of which could potentially cause significant health-related harms. For example, approximately half of the natural kratom consumers who use kratom as a harm reduction resource precisely because it provides benefits that allow these people to remain high-functioning and productive without the use of far more dangerous opioid medications. For many of these people, including those with chronic pain and debilitating conditions for which they were previously prescribed highly addictive opioids, they suffer considerably as a result of taking those opioid medications and consider natural kratom a complete godsend. For these people in particular, outlawing kratom threatens to cause unimaginable harm. The prohibition you are considering would likely cause these people to return to the dangerous prescription opioid drugs that they did everything in their power to escape, and will find the medical community has taken a hardline approach to these drugs, and both prescribers and pharmacists have made obtaining these medications exceedingly difficult even for responsible use. Many won't have access to consistent health care either. Many will turn to dangerous street drugs, like we saw in the second wave of the opioid epidemic. And it's never been more dangerous to take street drugs than it is right now. And yet others will take their own lives, because for them what you are proposing is a return to a living hell. I am deeply concerned that the prohibition of natural kratom leaf could exacerbate the U.S. opioid epidemic and cause significant preventable loss of life. What's worse, it appears the push to outlaw kratom is being driven by fear-mongering and misinformation rather than scientific evidence.
Sir, I'm going to have to stop. We're at a dead stop. I'm going to have to stop you at this time. But I would like to have your additional information if you'd like to provide it. And we'd also like to have your, it doesn't appear that we're going to ban it. It appears that we're going to try to regulate it. And then want to make sure that you have your input, because I want to make sure that the people that need it get it. And so thank you for your testimony. Again, I apologize to all of you who wanted to have more testimony. We're just in a situation where we've got a time deadline that we have to open this room up for others.
Mr. Chairman, can I say one thing to the people who come and may not have gotten to testify? We've heard the emails we've seen from people. There was one lady from Conway, I won't mention any names, but she had a family, a young child, They both use the kratom products, and they're advocating for regulation. They're advocating not to be banned. And I think for those of you that came today, I think you've been heard, even though you didn't get heard. You've been heard by this Senate panel that I don't believe we're going to do anything that just does an outright ban. I think we're going to do it responsibly and try to take care of those who are using it for the right reasons. So I wanted to let y'all know that before we jump.
Certainly. In your professional opinion, does kratom at its natural level, like just from the plant and the leaf, in your opinion, is it addictive in any way?
I don't think it's addictive. I think it has the potential to cause dependency. But you have to understand this. This is where it gets complicated. The natural botanical plant is in the coffee family. The most pharmacologically active drug in the world is caffeine. It is like coffee. It is more like coffee than it is cannabis or hemp. I hear you guys referring it to hemp, and I got to caution you. It's not that. We need to find a new regulatory framework, and I get borrowing frameworks from an analog from something you're familiar with. It's not hemp. It's not that. It's more like coffee.
It's more like coffee.
It really is more like coffee. Now, however, you can take this plant, you can bring it into a laboratory, you can convert it, and you can make it dangerous by concentrating it. We do have a problem here, and we do need to solve that problem. Mm-hmm. But prohibition is not the answer. And I, like other people have said, it's going to create an illicit market. It's not going to solve your problem. It's going to make it worse.
Thank you. Will of the committee.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Move carry. Move it up. Oh.
Yeah. No, just go with the adoption of the amendment first.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll move adoption of the amendment.
A second? Second. Further discussion? All in favor?
Well, Mr. Chairman,
yes.
Reserving my rights on fixing the amendment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. All rights reserved. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, let's move to the. I'm sorry. You're going to oppose passing it out.
Okay.
Do I have, as it relates to the bill itself,
The bill
moving
is
it
amended.
forward?
Yeah.
As amended.
Yeah. Move forward the bill. I move to move forward the bill as amended.
And then with the reservation of rights.
Reservations.
Do I have a second? Second. All right. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, and yourself and your proxy. All right, thank you very much. Thank you all.
Senator Taylor, can I have your hard copy proxy, please?